I never thought I'd be the kind of man to share a story like this. At my age, when you've seen decades come and go, you think you've already survived the worst storms life can throw at you. You think you've learned enough lessons to be immune to betrayal, heartbreak, and the kind of disappointment that shatters your core. You believe, no, you convince yourself, that time has built something stronger than temptation. For 30 years, I believed that. My wife, Margaret, and I weren't just married, we were partners, teammates, the kind of couple that family friends pointed to and said, now that's what lasting love looks like. We had history, the kind of history you can't just fabricate. She knew every scar on my body, and I knew every freckle on hers. We'd built a home, raised 2 children, gone through sickness and health, and carried each other through more storms than I can count. But love, Eve learned, isn't destroyed overnight. It's chipped away. Slowly. Quietly. Until one day you realize the foundation you thought was solid has already crumbled. The first cracks were so small I barely noticed. Margaret had always been casual with her phone. She'd leave it lying on the kitchen counter, buzzing away with texts from friends or calls from her sister. But suddenly, it was always in her hand. If she went to fold laundry, the phone went with her. If she stepped into the bathroom, she carried it like it was an oxygen tank she couldn't live without. At first, I laughed it off. Everyone's glued to their devices these days, right? But then came the changes in her routine. She started staying up late, long after I had gone to bed. She'd say she couldn't sleep, that her mind was restless, that a cup of chamomile tea might help. But I could see the glow of her phone through the crack in the door. I could hear the low murmur of her voice, hushed and private, punctuated by the occasional soft laugh, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in a long time. It was easy to brush it aside at first. After all, after 30 years of marriage, who wants to believe their spouse is capable of betrayal? It's easier to convince yourself that you're imagining things. That maybe she's just chatting with an old friend. That maybe stress has made her restless. But the truth has a way of clawing through denial. One Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I had been running errands. The garage door jammed, like it always does, so Margaret didn't hear me come in. I walked through the kitchen quietly, the sound of my shoes muted by the rug, and that's when I heard her voice. It wasn't just the words, it was the tone. Soft. Breathless. Playful. I can't wait to see you. Hell never know. Honestly, I think I'm done with him. Done with me. That sentence hit me like a knife to the chest. 30 years, dismissed in a whisper. I froze in place, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands shook, not with anger, but with disbelief. The woman I had built my life with, the mother of my children, the person I thought I would grow old with was planning her escape. And she sounded happy about it. Happier than I'd seen her in years. I could have stormed in right then. I could have ripped the phone out of her hands, demanded answers, shouted, cursed, broken something just to release the rage building inside me. But I didn't. Something inside me shifted. A colder, sharper version of myself woke up that afternoon. Instead of confronting her, I decided to wait. To watch. To learn just how deep the betrayal went. Because I knew that if I reacted in anger, she would spin it against me. She would make me out to be paranoid, controlling, unstable. But if I waited, if I kept my silence, then when the time came, I could end it on my terms. That night, Margaret came home smiling, radiant in a way that almost broke me. She kissed my cheek, asked about my day, pretended everything was normal. But I could see the sparkle in her eyes, the glow of someone living a double life. And I smiled back. Because I had a secret too. My silence was my weapon. The days that followed were torture. Every laugh from her lips, every late yoga class, every sudden excuse to run errands, it all stung like salt in an open wound. I lay awake at night staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint tapping of her fingers on her phone. And yet I stayed quiet. But silence doesn't mean passivity. While she thought I was blind, I was paying attention to every detail. I learned the rhythms of her lies, the excuses she rotated, the times she was unavailable. And slowly, the outline of my plan began to form. The plan that would eventually become my 24-hour revenge. But in those first days after discovery, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about survival. Because let me tell you, finding out that the person you love most is betraying you, it doesn't just wound you. It unravels you. I questioned everything. Was she happy at Christmas when she hugged me under the mistletoe? Was she sincere when she said she was proud of me after my retirement party? Were the laughs we shared real, or just part of a play she had been putting on until someone better came along? That's the cruelest part of betrayal. It doesn't just take away your trust in your spouse. It makes you doubt your own memory, your own reality. And yet, through all that doubt, one thing crystallized in my mind: if she thought she could replace me, she was about to learn what being replaced really felt like. And so, I waited. And I planned. Because sometimes, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, silence is the beginning of the loudest statement you will ever make. After that Tuesday afternoon, when I heard her whisper those words, something in me changed forever. It was like my heart froze, and my mind, instead of drowning in grief, sharpened into something almost surgical. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry in front of her. No, if she wanted to play me for a fool, I was going to let her think I was blind until the moment I decided to show her otherwise. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Waking up beside her, making coffee like I always did, pretending everything was normal, it was torture. Every glance at her phone, every excuse to stay late or run errands, every fake smile felt like a dagger. But I kept my face calm. That's when the outline of my plan began to take shape. I told myself, if you're going to do this, you do it once, and you do it right. Step 1, evidence. I knew if I confronted her with nothing but suspicion, she would twist it. She'd accuse me of paranoia, claim I was losing my mind, maybe even play the victim. I couldn't let that happen. So, I started quietly collecting proof. Margaret had always been careless with technology. She wasn't stupid, but she underestimated me. She thought I was an old man who barely knew how to use a smartphone beyond checking emails and reading the news. She didn't know I'd been paying attention. Late one night, while she was in the shower, she left her phone unlocked on the dresser. My heart was pounding as I picked it up, my hands trembling so badly I could barely scroll. But I didn't need long. Within 30 seconds, I found them. The messages. Sweet nothings. Plans to meet. Laughing emojis. Words that once belonged to me, now given freely to another man. And then the dagger. I feel alive with you. He doesn't even notice me anymore. That one stung. Because it was partly true. I had gotten comfortable. After 30 years, maybe I wasn't showering her with attention like I did when we were teenagers. But instead of talking to me, instead of working on it together, she handed herself to someone else. I took pictures of the messages with my own phone. Every line. Every timestamp. Every secret that she thought she had hidden was now in my possession. And with that, I felt the first flicker of control return to me. Step 2, the finances. Marriage is more than love, it's trust, it's teamwork, and yes, it's money. We'd built a comfortable life together. Savings accounts, retirement funds, a house we'd nearly paid off. For decades, every penny had been shared. But that Tuesday taught me something: Margaret wasn't planning to share forever. So one quiet afternoon, while she went to her yoga class, I went to the bank. I sat down with the manager, a man who had known me for years, and explained what I wanted. Legally, my pension, my personal investments, the accounts in my name alone, they were mine to move. And that's exactly what I did. Within 2 hours, decades of savings were secured in a private account. Margaret would never know until it was too late. Walking out of that bank, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time since hearing those whispered words, I wasn't the helpless husband being betrayed. I was the man quietly taking back control. Step 3, the children. This was the part that broke me the most. Our 2 kids, grown now, with families of their own, had always looked up to their mother. She was the one who kissed their scraped knees, helped with homework, stayed up late sewing Halloween costumes. To them, she was the perfect mom. How could I shatter that image? How could I drag them into the ugliness of betrayal? But then I remembered, she was the one who made this choice, not me. And if Margaret thought she could live 2 lives, wife and lover, then the truth had to come out. So I called them. First, our daughter, Emily. She picked up on the second ring, cheerful as always. I forced calm into my voice. Sweetheart, could you come over for dinner this Friday? Bring the kids. I want us all together. She agreed without hesitation. Then I called our son, Daniel. Same words, same calm tone. He hesitated, work was busy, but when he heard the firmness in my voice, he agreed. I didn't tell them why. Not yet. But I could tell they sensed something in my tone. Fathers don't call family dinners out of the blue unless something's wrong. Step 4, the mask with the pieces in place. The hardest part was pretending. Margaret grew bolder in those days. She'd leave with a smile, come back with her cheeks flushed, her eyes glowing in a way that used to be reserved for me. She thought she was invincible. She thought I was clueless. And so I played the part of the loving husband. I brewed her favorite coffee in the mornings, kissed her cheek on the way out the door, asked about her day when she returned. I even complimented her new outfits, the ones she was clearly wearing for him, not me. It was agony. Every smile I gave felt like swallowing broken glass. But the more convincing my mask, the sweeter the reveal would be. I wasn't preparing for a shouting match. I wasn't preparing for divorce papers or a dramatic fight. No, I was preparing for something colder. Something cleaner. Something that would take exactly 24 hours to dismantle the illusion she had built. Those nights, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I rehearsed it in my head. The moment at dinner. The way I would slide my phone across the table, the messages glowing under the horrified eyes of our children. The way Margaret's face would crumble when she realized her double life was over. I wasn't just imagining it, I was savoring it. Because this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity. When Friday finally approached, I could barely contain the storm inside me. I moved through the day with mechanical precision, work, errands, small talk. Margaret noticed nothing. She thought I was the same old husband, predictable and harmless. But inside, I was counting down the hours. And when the clock struck 6 that evening, the stage was set. The table was laid. The children were on their way. And Margaret, smiling, oblivious, was about to walk straight into the trap I had built, piece by piece, with the quiet patience of a man she thought she could replace. You know, people often think that revenge is loud. That it's a storm of shouting, breaking things, maybe even violence. But that's not how it really works. Not when you've lived as long as I have. Real revenge, it's quiet. It's measured. It's the kind of thing that creeps up on the other person slowly, until they realize there's no escape, no way back. When I woke up the morning after everything began, I already knew this was going to be the last day, the last 24 hours of my marriage, the last 24 hours of pretending. The night before, I had gone through every stage of anger. shouting, crying, staring at the ceiling in the dark. But the sun came up, and I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm. Dead calm. And that calmness scared me more than the rage. Because it meant my decision was final. She was still asleep beside me, looking innocent, fragile even. The kind of face that would fool anyone. But not me, not anymore. I quietly got up, dressed, and went into the kitchen. I poured myself coffee, sat at the table, and thought through everything step by step. If I was going to do this, I needed to make sure it hurt. Not physically. No, that would have been too easy for her. I wanted her to feel the kind of loss I had felt the moment I discovered her betrayal. I spent the morning gathering proof. Every message she had sent him, every late-night call, every photo she thought she had hidden, I printed it all. Pages upon pages, laid out neatly in a folder. I even included the little lies she had told me, him going to the store, when she wasn't. Him staying late at work, when she was somewhere else entirely. Each lie was a thread, and when I laid them all together, they formed a rope. A rope that she had tied around her own neck. By noon, she was up, cheerful, making small talk, asking if I wanted eggs. Imagine that, the woman who had stabbed me in the back offering me breakfast like nothing had happened. I said nothing. Just watched her. Every word she spoke felt like poison on my skin. She thought she had replaced me already, thought that the other man could give her everything she wanted. She had no idea that in less than 24 hours, her world would collapse. That afternoon, I went to the bank. I froze our joint accounts, transferred what was mine into a separate place, and left just enough for her to survive, nothing more. 30 years of saving, planning, building. I made sure she would see every dollar vanish from her reach. She had chosen someone else, so let him provide for her now. Then came the calls. One by one, I phoned our closest friends, our family. Calmly, politely, I invited them to dinner that evening at our home. I told them it was important. I didn't shout, didn't give away my plan. But inside, my chest was tight, my heart pounding. I knew this would be the hardest part, the exposure. When she saw me setting the table later that evening, she looked surprised. "What's all this?" she asked. I smiled, probably for the first time that whole day. "You'll see," I told her. By 7, the house was full. Our children, grown now with families of their own, sat in the living room. My brothers, her sisters, neighbors we'd known for decades. It looked like any other family gathering, the kind we'd hosted so many times. She played the perfect wife, carrying plates, pouring drinks, laughing too loudly. I almost admired her ability to act. Almost. When everyone was seated, I stood up at the head of the table. My voice didn't shake. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I wanted you here tonight because after 30 years of marriage, I think my wife deserves recognition." She beamed, probably thinking I was about to give some kind of anniversary speech. But then, slowly, I laid the folder down on the table. One by one, I pulled out the pages. Messages. Photos. Calls. Lies. I read them aloud, my voice steady, the silence in the room growing heavier with every word. Her face drained of color, her hands trembled, and still I read. I wanted everyone, our children, our friends, to see her for who she really was. By the time I finished, no one could even look at her. She tried to speak, to explain, but every word fell flat. No one believed her anymore. She wasn't the wife, the mother, the friend they had thought she was. She was exposed, stripped bare in front of everyone who mattered. And me? I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just looked at her and said, "You thought you could replace me. But today, you've lost me, and everything that came with me." I left her sitting there, shaking, while I walked out the door. I didn't go far, just to a hotel downtown. I needed that distance, needed the space to breathe. The next morning, my phone buzzed with messages. Some from family, expressing shock, some from friends offering support. But the ones that stood out were from her. Dozens of them. Apologies, please, promises to change. Each one more desperate than the last. She begged me to come home, begged me not to leave her like this. But I didn't reply. Not once. Because my revenge wasn't about hurting her body, or even destroying her life. It was about taking back my power. For too long, I had been blind, trusting, complacent. Now, in just 24 hours, I had shown her, and everyone else, that I was not a man to be replaced. And that silence, that absence of my response, that was the sharpest knife of all.